Welcome back. You're watching the Power Breakfast Show live on Citizen TV. Time now for the newspaper review. My name is Wahiga Mwaura, and time to take a look at the headlines in today's papers. To help me do that, I'm joined by my guest in studio, Zach Kinuthia, political analyst. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
In addition, Nerima Wako, founder, Siasa Place. Welcome to the broadcast as well.
Thank you.
Good. We're expecting David Osiani. I'll introduce him as soon as he gets here. But let's begin by taking a look at the Standard. And of course, for you watching at home, you can talk to us on 22422. We're asking you, has Wafula Chebukati's IEBC's changes convinced you that the body is ready to handle the upcoming polls? Has Wafula Chebukati's changes at the IEBC convinced you that the body is ready to handle the upcoming polls? Talk to us, 22422, and on social media as well, at Citizen TV Kenya, on Facebook and Twitter. I'll read your feedback throughout the course of this program. The headline in the Standard, which you should be seeing up on your screen shortly: Chiloba sidelined, a special team named. Chebukati takes direct charge of voter identification and resource transmission, leaves out officials, Raila rejected, sidesteps IEBC CEO and names new team to oversee October 17th repeat presidential election. And if you turn to page 5 of the same paper, the Standard, a few more details there. For example, you can see who the new managers are: project coordinator, head of operations, head of logistics, head of training, head of ICT, and head of the National Tallying Center. And they also mention, of course, the team that's been sidelined from the repeat poll. That's Mr. Chiloba, the CEO, also voter registration. Electrical Operations Director Immaculate Kasait, head of legal department, head of operations, and of course the ICT director and one of the commissioners. Let me bring my panelists in. I'll start with you, Zach.
Yes.
These changes, are they believable? One to NASA, to Jubilee, and of course to the wider public?
Well, it remains to be seen today and days ahead whether it remains credible to NASA and believable to NASA, because Jubilee has had no problem with the referee, because they are sure that they have trained very well for the game and they're going to shoot inside the net. So it's not the problem of Jubilee. So even if the election is conducted by UN, AN, ZN, XN, Jubilee will win. But now it's NASA to tell us whether they still disbelieve or discredit the new official.
What about the public? From the feedback that you are getting, these changes, are they surprised by them? Do they think that they will help the polls body in handling the upcoming polls?
I'd actually say that in the beginning, the public never cared about the individuals in the IEBC, because to them, to the public, it ends with casting your vote and leaving. You really don't care about that. So people of Chiloba, people like Chebukati, most of them have been brought up negatively in the light by the NASA people, who think that these people engineered mismanagement of electoral process. So to the public, and I say again, the people you have named Wahiga Mwaura do not and are not known by the public. We are only knowing them now, and in the coming days, it will be a heated and generated debate for people now to say this was this and this was this, because the public at best do not and should not care about that.
So they are all at best know very little about these individuals. Rima, do you share Zach's optimism about IEBC's preparedness no matter what happens?
Yes, I do in a sense, but to talk about the public not quite caring, I disagree with that. The moment everything is so politicized, so people are going to investigate, they're going to research, Google, find out where these people have come from. And then not only that, they're going to try and place them within the political parties. This must be Jubilee, this must be a NASA affiliate. And that's what we do with our judiciary as well. It's very difficult to see people in positions of like power and not want to align them to a particular coalition or party, and that's the problem that we have at the moment.
That's right. The headline in the Daily Nation, of course, you will not be surprised, is pretty much the same in terms of the topic. IEBC unveils fresh team to run new poll. Uhuru and Raila locked in standoff, of course, over date of fresh elections, with NASA giving conditions it wants met before vote, while Jubilee says it is ready for the ballot. So fine, and I'll come back to you, Zach. A change of personnel, we've seen that happening. But the question some would ask is, has Chebukati given, throughout in the process that he's carried out over the last couple of days, has he given a roadmap on how issues that plagued the August 8th polls have been dealt with to ensure that they don't happen again on October 17th? We're talking about cybersecurity, we're talking about haphazard use of passwords. Those are challenges that were brought up during the petition. So you can change personnel on one hand, but if you don't address these issues, then a section of the country will not believe the upcoming polls will be credible. What would you say about that, Zach?
The good thing, Mwaura, is that Chebukati, as the chairman of a commission, is not going to follow instructions as you want. he is going to implement the Supreme Court ruling which found him faulty on transmission of results. In this case, the fidelity of the forms that were proceeding from the constituency and some polling stations across the country. That's where the fault was found, and that is the fault he's going to rectify.
Let me ask you something, Zach. How hard would it have been for Chebukati to call a stakeholders forum? To hear their views, to get the different proposals from everyone, and then sit back with his team, review them, and come up with an agreement that maybe takes into account everyone's views?
It was unnecessary, and I'll tell you why it was unnecessary.
In your opinion?
Let me tell you why it was unnecessary, Maura. The court did not find him and his commission fault. Did not find him and his commissioners and personnel on fault. It was the way the work was done, and at best he has changed those people. If it is about form transmission and whatever, the integrity and fidelity of the polls or other results transmission from very down, that one he has addressed. Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga do not stand, and should not stand in his way, because this is an independent body, and we must believe in our institutions to say the Supreme Court ruling has found you faulty, Chebukati, and I order you again freshly go and conduct these polls, and these are your areas of weakness. We are waiting the full judgment in 21 days, and
less than 21 days.
Yes, in less now. By now we know that the areas that he was found faulty, at best he corrected them yesterday, and he has given us a date.
By changing personnel?
The personnel he changed, by the way, are the personnel where departments were found faulty by the Supreme Court ruling, because those people can no longer be held in high regard by the public, as you were asking me earlier. And NASA should now move ahead and congratulate the Chebukati-led commission, because at least he has had their demands. He changed personnel.
Narima, what Zach is trying to tell us is that by changing personnel, you fix the issues in a company. For example, let's look at the wider picture. But for you, don't you think a stakeholders forum might have made this debate that we are having irrelevant, because no one would then say that they were not consulted?
Absolutely. A stakeholders forum is very important, because we have to remember the backlash that IBC received for not involving enough stakeholders. Even though, for instance, Siasa Place was one of the youth in their steering committee, we also had received so much information that young people hadn't even been contacted by IBC, or even if you talk about people with disabilities, when you talk about women. So when you do have issues, you want to go back to the ground, the grassroots, especially those stakeholders who are very involved with them, and hear from them in terms of the election. What are the people, complaining about? Because as much as we read these reports from ELOG, for instance, or these observer missions and things like that, you would want to hear firsthand what their complaints are and how you can be able to solve them. Because you can't move forward without fixing the problem that you've left behind. By changing personnel, it doesn't change the issue. You're still going to have the same issue on the ground, so you're not solving anything.
What would you advise IBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati to do at this moment? He's under a lot of fire, of course, from NASA. The team, basically, that are running the IBC at the moment, the elections are coming up soon. How would you advise them if you were called in for a stakeholders forum?
It would be in terms of not quite rushing into things. It seems like everything is being sped up. We're more concerned about reaching, for instance, the October 17th deadline, but not concerned about the process led to it. So, for instance, there are a lot of questions we've been talking about. What were the issues to begin with? Some of that information has not even been released yet. And so things like that, in terms of not only stakeholders as youth organizations, civil society organizations, religious institutions are big functionality in our country.
Although they've been accused of being very silent. I think you've seen that cartoon that's been circulating.
Yes, they have, and this is a moment where we need people to step up. We were saying we have all these prayers before the election, and now that we're in this period, which is quite a limbo, not only for Kenya but the world, because no one has quite done this before. So we need those prayers to continue on. So the religious community needs to step up.
Okay, good point. Zach, coming back to you, what will these employees of IEBC who are not within the special projects team be doing over the next couple of weeks? How does that work now in your thinking? I
suggest that now that the chairman has instructed clearly that the new personnel will be serving for 3 months, 90 days, I suppose that the others, and this is a supposition, where we are to find the letters of their either maybe they have been rescheduled or dismissed, we don't know, but we suggest, because the leave of the new people will be 90 days, maybe the rest will be given a leave to go and take leave, Because having them in the commission would complicate things, because their position have been assumed by other people, except now I think the CEO has not been replaced per se, although I have not seen his name in the new team. Those that have been replaced in the new dockets, rather in the dockets, the new people in the dockets, I suppose that it's automatic that they will take a leave silently to go and watch things from the TV.
And do you think, okay, so fine, the move has been made in terms of setting up this special projects team, but from a trust perspective, wouldn't you feel that a person as powerful in the IEBC as a CEO could still have a hand in everything, even if they're away? You know, for example, if let's say Fred Ndimuli, who's coming in for Citizen Extra later on in this broadcast, he's not here physically. But if you had a problem with him, and I'm using this as an example, you could say that Wahiga, you know, Fred has called you and given you instructions or something of the sort. So don't you feel that that's something that NASA might also still not be completely convinced about, despite the fact that you say that those team members are not directly involved in this upcoming election?
The good thing, Wahiga, is that the office sometimes defines the person as much as the person defines the office. And once you are out of the office,
now you're just
there are no powers. Wahiga, I can tell you today, what you're doing as you sit there, you can do it any day, any time, but not until you are sitting where you're sitting. So as long as these people are not serving in the positions where they are named after, there is no interference whatsoever. The only thing they can do is to advise, and not advise the people sitting, advise the public or their families.
But you don't think they can push agendas?
There is no interference, maybe to say.
Fair enough. There are a lot of stories that have come around this big story, the upcoming elections, the special team that has been set up. Nerima, let's turn to Standard page 6, where the headline is all about examinations coming up very soon, and Uhuru Raila clash over fresh poll date on campaign trail. Even before the election contest at the ballot in 40 days, President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga, yes, this is the Standard page 6, yesterday clashed over the new poll date, pointing to bitter campaigns. The war of words signaled a protracted duel ahead of the fresh election order by the Supreme Court, which nullified Uhuru's victory in the August 8th presidential vote following a successful petition by Raila. And I'm just trying to see if I can get the exact, actually just next to it, repeat poll, Raila test proposal opposed by experts, which is the proposal by Raila to have national exams postponed for the repeat presidential elections, has elicited sharp reactions from stakeholders in the education sector. Some of these stakeholders include officials of Elimu Yetu Coalition, National Parents Association, and Kenya Private Schools Association, who opposed the suggestion to change the dates, arguing that it would affect learners. Nerima, when you heard this breaking out yesterday, what were your initial thoughts?
I was concerned, of course, because you know, we have to think when I was doing KCPE or KCSE.
I will not ask when. That's a story for another day.
we put so much emphasis. I remember even my Kiswahili teacher, Mr. Wambua, saying, you know, KCPE, if you fail this, you failed in your life. Or, you know, so
do or die.
Yeah, it's do or die. And that's the pressure that we put on our children and our youth. To the point where when I was coming this morning, I saw Kilimani almost full. Kids were already in school, in class. It's 6 a.m. And so it's so early. And they're not even, you know, in upper primary. This is lower primary. So think about it, the immense pressure that we put on young people. So they are very concerned about moving the dates, because you also have to think about parents. What does that mean? Does that mean that their year is going to be extended? Does that mean more school fees? Does that mean it affects the other students who are behind you? Do you join their classes? So it's not as simple as just saying postpone. It's actually a very complex situation, I believe, and I can understand why parents, families, teachers, students are upset about that.
Wouldn't you say that these 1.5 million students who are set to do exams will have a better future if an election is held that takes into account all factors? Democracy seems to have been carried out, you know, in the upcoming election, and that's for them when they are looking for jobs, etc. You know, the economy will have stabilized. Kenya will be seen as a democratic nation. Some would say that it's almost worth the disruption if you can present or prepare a better future for these children, Nerima.
Well, you know, you're talking as if as soon as that's determined, the results will be immediate. You're talking about something that will happen maybe 40 years from now. Who those students who missed that examination might be even past youth or working. You know, they'll be retirement age, and that's the sacrifice. So when you weigh the options, yes, I can see why some people would say that this process is very imperative and it's consequential, that perhaps some students are going to have to sit back. But 1.5 million,
at least,
that is not a small number. Even before you make that decision, you have to measure in terms of, these are the future. So how are you impacting them? How are you affecting them? And do you want to now start talking about the education system? Perhaps this year is going to have a more lenient examination. But is that cheating? Is that fair to the rest?
Those are good questions. Zach, you can weigh in on some of them.
My friend Raila Odinga last sat for his exams about 50 years ago. And that's why he has lost it all. Completely. That in his days when people are sitting for Kape and Kase, there were only about 1,000 or less students and people sitting for exam. So a DO or a chief could actually order for a push for the rest of the exam. My friend has forgotten that chiefs are no longer taking care of these things. And we have logistics of numbers. 1.5 million students in primary and more than a million or less than a million in high school is not a simple exercise just to push at the click of a tongue. It's unfortunate. So, again, it is not so much of what he said as of how he said it.
Okay, so for you take issue with how he said that particular statement, and I think we have that story. Maybe we can play it a bit later. Sorry, carry on.
Okay.
No. I'll sing a bit later. Carry on.
You know, it is very wrong to say that children cannot die. I cannot see the correlation between examinations and death, unless you know something I don't know.
I think for him, what he was trying to say is that even if exams are postponed,
yes,
the children will still be able to do it. And I think he was trying to explain the gravity of the matter, that the election process, one that comes every 5 years,
yes,
it's worth disrupting just
yes,
a little bit if it ensures that the whole country feels that the process
it's not worth it. Let me tell you why it's not worth it. Majority, our 844 system, which courtesy of Jubilee government is being phased out, depends more on cramming than understanding. All the students and the pupils who will be cramming exams to pass them, and they have crammed and fed their mind that they are going to sit for a crammed exam at a certain date. By pushing the exam one day more, that is travesty of justice to the kids. So we cannot accept it, and by claiming, as you said, Raila Odinga is my friend, and I can't sometimes when he talks things I'm just laughing, because saying pushing an exam is not as easy. Even pushing a program is not as easy. Even families and businesses are not pushed as easy. These things have been prepared for a very long time. Remember, the moment exams were announced last year is the moment we started preparing for new exams. So a whole year cannot just be pushed by one date. It is wrong, and it is not worth it. As you said, Wahiga, that the kids will find a new country where they can find economy. Even if exams are done at stipulated time, these kids will still find their country beautiful and more progressive and economically stable.
We'll revisit this topic shortly, but I think we have that story now about the poll date row. Okay, not yet. We'll come back to that in just a bit. In the same page, paper, standard page 5, let me see if I can just get that particular story. President Uhuru Kenyatta says the court should have ordered a vote recount. I believe it's Nation page 5. Let me just take you there and just touch on the headline briefly. Then I can carry on from there. I can't seem to find the
standard page 5.
Standard page 5.
Yes.
Okay, just let me just take you back there. There we go. The headline reads, court should have ordered vote recount, says President. President Uhuru Kenyatta now says the Supreme Court should have ordered a recount of the presidential vote to determine the winner instead of nullifying the entire election. The head of state, who has been accused of demeaning and threatening the court, said he has no apologies for his attacks, as he felt the judicial body had denied him a clean win. Narima, when you think about the decision by the judgment by the Supreme Court last week, Friday, why do you think they did not order for a vote recount? That was one of the options on the table.
Yes, it was. Interestingly, when we look at 2013, the whole issue that was brought to the court was vote counting. So NASA took a different approach. This time it was process and procedures. So the fact that the court was looking at it differently, perhaps we would also have issues with the counting. Who's going to do the counting? Where is it going to be done? Are there enough ballot papers? Because we had so many stories coming from the ground in terms of some ballot boxes were stuffed, some were found in hotel rooms, some were found, just enough. So even bringing the public to trust this process would have been a difficult situation, not just for IEBC, but also for the different stakeholders involved and voters as well. So I think that's why they decided to just have a fresh start over, try and change the team and see if the process can be improved.
Okay, I'm coming back to you to carry on with that debate. I think that story is ready now. Let's bring you that story now, as done by Sam Kituku.
After intense pressure from the opposition and in line with his promise last Friday to make changes to the election management team at the Commission, IEBC Chair has appointed a 6-member project team to specifically manage the October 17th fresh presidential poll. In the lineup released to newsrooms, Chebukati has picked Marjan Hussein Marjan, who currently serves as Deputy CEO Support Services, to lead the team as project coordinator. Dr. Sydney Namulungu, the Kisii County Elections Returning Officer, will serve as the head of operations, while Nancy Kariuki, the County Elections Returning Officer for Mombasa, will be the head of logistics. Bernard Misati Museti, who was the Samburu County Returning Officer, will be the head of training. Albert Gogo, who has been the Kitui County Elections boss, will be in charge of ICT, Chebukati adding that he will directly supervise him, given the importance of the department in results transmission. Silas Rotich, the Nakuru CRO, will be the head of the National Tallying Center. The project team effectively knocks out IEBC CEO Ezra Chiloba, who in the August election oversaw all electoral operations. Immaculate Kasait, currently Director of Operations, will have no defined role in the repeat poll, same as the ICT Director James Mohati. The three had been accused by the opposition alliance of bungling the now invalidated August presidential poll. Other persons who have been sidelined in the new lineup are Anne Derito, Manager Training, and Dr. Catherine Kamindo, who headed the National Tallying Center at the Bomas of Kenya. IEBC Chair has also gazetted October 17th as the date of the fresh poll and confirmed only Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga with their respective running mates will be on the ballot. This despite opposition by NASA, who have accused the Commission of failing to consult them while arriving on the date, a claim President Kenyatta has dismissed.
Hakuna uchaguzi tarehe 17 na mwezi ujao. Maana yake IEBC ingeshauriana na sisi na walikataa kushauriana na sisi. Mashauriana tu na Jubilee na amechukua amri ya Bwana Matiang'i.
Siku imetangazwa, sasa amesema hapana, hiyo siku haiwezekani kwa sababu sijaulizwa. Kwani mimi niliulizwa? Where is the legal requirement that Raila Odinga must be consulted?
IEBC settled on the date after considerations of the national examinations set to begin in the last week of October, which Odinga sees as a non-issue.
There's no harm in putting the exams by 2 weeks. The children are not going to die. So this excuse by Matiang'i that, oh, in order not to delay the exams and so on, well, the children are just going home for holidays.
Anatuambia watoto wa Kenya hawezi wakufe ati kwa sababu ya uchaguzi, wanaweza wagoje. Huyo ni mtu ako na haja na binadamu? Si haja yake ni kichwa yake awe na uongozi.
The official campaigns will, according to IEBC, run between tomorrow the 6th of October until the 15th of October, being 48 hours to the poll.
Right, just refreshing a little bit about what happened yesterday, and our big question of the day is, has Wafula Chebukati's IEBC changes convinced you that this body is ready to handle the upcoming polls? We've been talking about that with Zach and Nariman. Lots of SMSs coming in quite early in the morning, but a lot of people really weighing in on this discussion. Somebody here stating, you don't give us your name, but you say the election is more important. Pushing an exam by a week will not jeopardize the students. The government is simply jittery and want the IEBC to hurry up. But someone else here, this is Jared Omariba from Nyamira, says to push exams outrageous. At whose convenience? Never. My child has to do these papers as planned. You can see this is quite emotive. And let me see if one more person, Jane Matungulu from Machakos. I think it would be hypocritical to a section of Kenyans to pressure IEBC on some issues and forget they are independent as the Supreme Court is. We are being unfair. Let us rise beyond ourselves, and saying exams to be postponed is irresponsible. Zach, some feedback there. Your response, of course, and also to that story that we've just played.
I'm calling on all the parents from all the corners of our land, from the hills and the mountains and the rivers and the lakes.
What about the cities?
To reject. The cities are always urbanites are always
part of that narrative. Okay, go on.
People in the city do not really mean what they say, and they never say what they mean. So I'm calling on all the genuine parents from every section of our land to reject Raila Odinga's call to postpone exams, especially parents who have children whom they have been preparing to welcome home after the last paper, either in KCPE or in KCSE, because at the convenience of one man, the country cannot be held at ransom. If it is a national issue.
If it is the democratic right of that one man, as you said,
yes,
to do so,
yes,
by listening to him, which is what many are asking IEBC to do, at least a part of the country is asking IEBC to do, are you not, in a sense, mitigating potential legal action in the future? Because ignore the comments of a key stakeholder like the NASA leader, and you potentially open yourself up to legal challenges moving forward.
And what is the democratic right of that child who has been preparing for that very day? Where are we leaving the child? Simply because they are voiceless, that one Leviathan man can command his way in, it is wrong. Let me say, if we accepted a Supreme Court ruling, and you know, I never accepted the ruling.
You have not accepted the ruling.
I didn't accept it, but, or rather, I didn't believe in it, but I accepted the ruling and went on. If Raila Odinga accepted ruling A, that the election was invalid, null and void, he must accept ruling B, that IEBC should conduct that election without conditions.
Is there, Nerima, middle ground? Is there a third solution, maybe another date or another way in which someone with Solomonic wisdom can find a way to bridge the gap between these two issues? One is exams, but the other is, getting crucial feedback from stakeholders and factoring that in. Are there other options, or are we stuck? It's either this way or that way. There's no other plan C or D.
No, I don't think it's either this way or that way. There must be a solution. I think what makes it difficult is the fact that we're basing decisions on insufficient information. Because even just hearing Raila Odinga saying in 2 weeks, how sure are we it's going to be 2 weeks? Our own election took a whole week just for the results to come out, and then it wasn't even quite completed. We were still waiting for 11,000 forms to come in. So is it really viable? Is it really possible? And this is something that, both of these institutions have to sit down and measure. Again, it would be, what is IEBC planning to do? What are they capable of doing? And if we were to change the dates, what does Matiang'i say the proposed dates would be, if it's even possible, or what does it entail? Because we're talking about thousands of schools here. We're talking about people who, teachers, will be employed during that time. We're talking about students, and the police as well. And so it means that, are they going to be transported in school during this time period? People go to the village to vote. I mean, there are a lot of logistics that are happening, and for it to just be put in one sentence, I think is quite unfortunate.
Okay, because I don't have much time, Cheche will be coming up shortly. I want to give each of you 30 seconds just to give us what you see as potential solutions out of this. Let me start with you, Zach.
Thank you for this time. Let me say this, Wahiga, that going forward, IEBC has done its constitutional duty and obeyed the Supreme Court ruling, the highest court in the land, the pinnacle of justice, and they have announced the date of election. I am asking every Kenyan who was registered as a voter to come out on 17th and vote. Whether Raila Odinga will be in the ballot or not, let us come and vote whomever will be in the ballot. And if that would mean the president alone, then he will be elected and opposed.
Dangerous statement, but that's your view. We'll take it for, that way. Nerima, and for you?
Thank you. Going forward, I think that IEBC has to be extremely transparent. Not only that, we're watching them rush into decisions, which is understandable because of the time limitations that they have. However, you need to understand that the populace is in a time period where things are tense, and in fact, people are actually muting themselves out. We're going to have to go through campaigning seasons again. We were already exhausted with that. So IEBC is going to have to work hard to, gain that trust again and to be held accountable. So the people are definitely watching. So it would be important to also involve the various stakeholders and use the communication avenues that they have accessible.
Okay. I want to read a few SMSs, touch one more topic in the paper before we take a break. Somebody says, Professor Moi said, siasa mbaya, maisha mbaya. Hard politics, hard life. That's how they're summing up this current situation. Someone here also agreeing that nothing bad will happen if exams are postponed. Actually, our children will not die if the exams are postponed, and politicians will also not die by voting on 17th October. Another person here, Bosire from Rongai, says, tell that political analyst, I'm assuming he's talking to you, Zach,
yes,
that suppose there are issues as a result of dissatisfaction, as a result of not having a mutual agreement, the exams might not be done at all.
Yeah.
What still, you know, if let me see if I understand that. Okay, he finishes by telling you, he challenges you and says, sober up. Again, this is his personal opinion. But he feels that if you don't take these factors into account, the students will not have a peaceful environment to do exams because of the tension that will have happened as a result of not having a mutual agreement. I can actually just allow you to comment about that.
I think he's right on that postulation, but it's also cast on fear and negative pessimism.
Okay, and you leave it at that.
Yeah.
I want to take you to Nation page 8, just to touch on another topic, just to allow those who are viewing to know what some of the big stories are in the paper today. Politicians in a rush. As petitions deadline looms, the first two paragraphs read as follows. More election losers yesterday moved to court to challenge the outcome of the August 8th polls as the deadline for filing petitions draws near. The law requires people intending to contest the results of an election to file their petition within 28 days of the declaration of official results, which I believe the deadline will be coming up on Friday. According to the overview, 6 petitions have been filed in the gubernatorial race. We're talking about Embu, Garissa, Tana River, Kirinyaga, Mandera, and Taita Taveta. And the Senate race as well, 2 counties have been mentioned here, Kirinyaga and Wajir. And of course, we expect a lot more to happen over the next couple of days. Nerima, if you're a politician, you've been sworn in. Can you sit easy at this time if there's a petition in court regarding your particular seat?
Absolutely not. I believe that Friday taught us that anything is possible. So we are now seeing the floodgates of lawsuits. So I think that it's a very interesting time that we're living in. People are practicing their very civil right to be able to petition. And so it's going to be an interesting time.
It will be an interesting time. Zach, some lawyers have stated that don't think just because the Supreme Court ruled this way in a matter of national interest that the lower courts will rule in your favor, either the counties or constituency levels. Your take?
All you need to do, regardless of the lawyer's advice, is to go to the highest court in the land. If you have
is it that simple?
It's that easy. Because you can't contradict the highest court. And the highest court has no appeal. Just simple. Don't even go and say you are defeated unfairly. Just go and say, on the account of the Supreme Court ruling, nullify this election. And the judge will have a hard time.
Zach, I disagree, because the Supreme Court judgment came out of evidence that was presented. If you don't have that standard of evidence, then you can't expect an equal judgment.
And what was what was brought before Supreme Court?
You need to show that there was again, I'm not a lawyer, but don't you need to show that there was an issue with the way the election was managed in your particular area?
I would ask a lawyer if I was representing my client a simple question. The same body that was found faulty and elections nullified is the same body that declared my opponent or my rival
as a winner
and elect either governor or whatever. Now this is the same body. How then could we say that to bank out the higher results and transmitted fairly the lower results? It's that simple. So to answer your question, whether I would sit pretty, never. And I would agree with my sister. It is not the time for any politician to sit pretty, even if you won with a commanding majority. Because the point is not about numbers. And the petitioners are not going to quote numbers. They are going to quote technicalities and fidelity of the process.
Narima, if what Zach is saying is to be believed, it's almost as if all the cases that are going to court there'll be victories for the petitioners there. From what he's saying, that all you have to do is say, look, IBC bungled at a higher level, and our Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the land, did find that there were issues and nullified that election. And that's the same should be applied to my case, whether I'm an MCA, I was an MCA aspirant, MP aspirant. It sounds too good to be true.
Yes, it does. You're going to have proof at the end of the day. It's not about what is, because like I say, it's difficult to say that the presidential election, was nullified and the rest seem to be fine. Of course, we're going to be concerned about the figures and the numbers and how that came to account. So people are going to petition them, but you're going to have the proof that this particular individual or candidate did, beat you in this electoral period. And that's something that's going to be very difficult to prove, because you don't want to also go waste your time and waste your money. Our court systems are also slow. So even though you have the courage and the determination to petition or file something, it doesn't mean that you're going to get the results that you want always. A lot of times it just depends on how you're able to use the information that you have. You might be right, but you cannot prove that you're right.
So it's easier said than done.
Yes, it is easier said than done.
Zach, these petitions open another Pandora's box of sorts, because should some of those victories be rejected, nullified, I mean whatever word you choose to use, it means we're back to the polls in certain counties and constituencies and even in certain wards as well. The same body that will handle those elections are the IBC. IBC has already used what, 50 billion, almost 50 billion. They will potentially use another 10 billion in the coming days.
Yes.
Isn't this a strain on them? Manpower, resource, budget, logistics,
it is,
etc.?
Yeah, it is, Wahika, and this is why we say the Supreme Court ruling was gravely lacking in wisdom. It was only full of content and letter.
Well,
content and letter of the law.
It was a wise decision. You say it was gravely lacking in wisdom.
Yes, it was gravely lacking in wisdom. It was only full of knowledge and quotation of law.
What does that even mean, Zach?
That would mean they never looked at things you are quoting here, which is very dangerous. They never looked at how we could bungle the whole process of election and the money that goes into it, and the implication of economy with us in this country. And you know, so far we have lost so much in the stock exchange. They never looked at the implication of children doing exams next month. They never looked at just how unsettled the whole country has become just days after he had moved on. They never looked at the strain of emotions, strains of logistics and security that an entire process of election can bring to our country. So to answer your question straight, I would say it opens a cannon of worms, and these worms are about to jump from the buckets to the plates of our tables.
These worms are about to jump from the bucket to the plates on our tables.
Yeah.
But something interesting nevertheless in all this. Nerima, let me read you just something written here by Abiud Ocheng, part of the team that penned this article. The courts have this year received less than half of the election petition cases filed in the 2013 general election. So despite the fact that a lot of petitioners have the Supreme Court judgment as one part of their evidence, nevertheless, what we know so far is that less than half of the petitions that were filed in 2013 have been filed this time around. What does that mean? Does that mean that some candidates, you know, the cost of this election might mean that for some they decided they don't want to go into it? Is it too complicated?
Yes, elections are very expensive, and even before you think about joining in the race again, it's a very difficult decision, because if we look at even campaign financing, it's unfortunate that the Campaign Finance Act was never followed through, because it's a concern. When we're spending up to billions in campaigning, especially for people who perhaps are young or inexperienced and they want to enter political parties or politics, you have to think about the amount of finance that you have. Financial capacity is extremely important. Even to be able to enter a party, you might think that 100,000 is not much, but it's a lot for somebody who is perhaps unemployed at the moment or has left work to enter politics. So you're seeing people even selling land, property, houses, I mean, just to be able to enter politics. So it's the same with our court systems. Like I mentioned, they are expensive. As just to be able to file something, you have to pay that fee. For the Supreme Court, they were paying what, about 1.5 million?
That's right.
So if you're talking about that, about now the lower courts, you're also going to have to finance your petition. So where are you going to get those finances from? So it's a decision that you not only make as an individual, you have to make it with your support team as well, in terms of strategy and in terms of also concerning your family or involving your family, because this is an effort that is put with different stakeholders together with you, because they contribute. Interestingly
enough, I see a future where as you plan your campaign budget, you'll also need to put money aside for a petition in court. Even as we wind up, the campaign period officially started at midnight today. Your views on your expectations for what you expect over the next, what, 40 days or so as we go back to this period of campaigns. 30 seconds each. I'll start with you, Zach.
I think now the battleground has been defined, and now we are going to witness what we really call horses. Two horses, because there are no donkeys this time. Two horses. And this is the grand royale of the battle that we are going to have. And I call on decorum, and I foresee a do-die contest where each of the two will have the final chance to prove themselves to the people. And as to say, the country is bigger than both, and we will have this country after election. So I call on every Kenyan and supporter, and I am supporter of the President Uhuru Kenyatta. I call the Kenyans to to believe in his dream and give back the victory that was taken illegally.
Well, Zach, I'll have to stop you there. I can see you're already campaigning, and that's not what we called you here for. Okay, I mean, it's your democratic right, but not on this broadcast.
Goodness, I'm just listening to Zach over here. I'm like, oh, I'm expecting noise because there's going to be a lot of back and forth. Of course there is. And I'm just wondering who is going to be working, because now we have people who perhaps have been elected, nominated, and so you know they are proud of their party and they're going to be able to support their party leaders. So we've already seen even people changing houses and changing support. And so we're going to see a lot of our politicians out in the field trying to campaign, and I'm concerned about who is going to be working. And not only that, speaking to some of my friends, they've muted because they're just waiting for October to just go and vote. But as far as the political jargon going around, it's repetitious and it seems like more of attacks constantly every day. So that's what I'm expecting.
That's what you expect. Doesn't sound very positive. We'll just have to wait and see. We're back on with the campaigns, of course, bearing in mind they started at midnight, and that's something we'll be keeping our eyes on. Thank you so much to everyone who's taken time to write to us. I can't read all the messages in the interest of time, but keep sending your feedback. Chete will be up next on the other side of this break. But before that, some music that will hopefully get your Wednesday started off on the right note by Samawati Band. They'll be up next. You're watching the Power Breakfast Show live on Citizen TV. We'll be right back.